ring if you're ready to care. Oh, let's talk power, let's talk speed. Hosted by the one and only WETOODEEP. Turn it up loud, feel the power in your seat. This is Slapping Me, yes, Slapping Me.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Slapping Me Community Show. First episode of season number 5. 2026 is here. Happy New Year to everyone. We have a wonderful journey ahead of us in the world of wrestling, in the world of football. This episode really wasn't planned well, I'll be honest with you. And so there's not a lot of wrestling topics that I want to speak about. We have some in the questions, so that's what I'll save that for. I just wanted to do a new episode to start off the year, to say hello and Happy New Year, and sort of fill everyone in on what I plan to do over, going forward. And so with that, same business as usual, wrestling, football, community topics, and the questions, whatever you want to talk about, can be, questions could be asked literally on anything. With that being said, I don't have a lot of, other, announcements. This is going to be business as usual. I'm contemplating, with it being one episode a week, do I still want to do Tuesday? Do I want to switch to Friday? It's just, because I do want to watch NXT live, but at the same time, I just have a feeling going into the new year, the Cena run over, I think going forward, Raw and SmackDown are going to get better. I do. I think now that a massive chunk of the creative for 2025 is over, which is Cena and all of that, Triple H can focus on some of the creative that he had to put in the back seat. Now, that's not to say that I'm going to jump right in and tune into Raw and SmackDown every week. But I'm going to keep my ear to it to see how it is. And what I really need from you guys as a community is, if you guys start to tune in, let me know. Because if that's the case, what will probably end up happening is that I'll move recording to Friday so that I could watch Raw, so that I can watch NXT, record on Friday. Like what used to happen, earlier last year. I did, if you remember the old setup, I did the Tuesday episode and then the Friday episode. I would then just move to a Friday episode, so I could watch all the wrestling, right? But I don't want to make that decision now and then the program not be good, and then, right? So, for now, I'll record Monday nights, and then we'll go from there. But there may be a potential change in the year where I move to Friday. We shall see. We'll play that by ear. With that being said, like I said, there's not a lot to really talk about. Probably be a shorter episode. I do have some football things, though. Football still has happened over the last few weeks, so we've taken our break for the holidays. And so just a few things. As we're entering week 18, we will know the playoff race, the playoff situation on Monday when it is going to be kind of weird, having an episode on Friday, then having another episode directly on Monday. So again, it wasn't a lot of planning. So I wanted to talk about predicting the playoffs but I want to save that till Monday when I record, and when we actually know the playoff situation, right? But overall, most of the teams are in. It's just seeding that really is being played for this week. I'll tell you this. Of the playoff eligible teams and the NFC, the San Francisco 49ers are to me the team to watch out for. And they have a lot to play for on Saturday night. If they beat the Seahawks, they're the 1 seed. If they lose, I believe they go to the 6 seed. With the Rams' victory on Sunday. And so, I mean, there's a lot for San Fran to play for. I think San Fran actually does win the game. Personally, I think San Fran will end up winning the division, being the 1 seed, and getting the much-needed break to where the playoffs literally come through San Francisco. In order to play in San Francisco in the Super Bowl this year, you'll have to go through San Francisco in the NFC. I think other teams here, I think there are very much some pretenders in this field. For the NFC, I think the Rams are pretenders. I really do. As strong as they've been all year, they're very beatable. I think they are pretenders. I think the Eagles definitely will be one and done. I think whoever wins the NFC South, we really have to argue, should not be there. The best case scenario, the Panthers win Saturday afternoon and end up 9-8 to win the division, which is kind of respectable. But at the same time, if they lose, Tampa wins, they'll both be 8-9. If Atlanta wins, they're also 8-9, and the Panthers win the conference or the division, meaning they'll get in the playoffs. But if Tampa wins, Atlanta loses, then Tampa makes the playoffs at 8-9. And either way, having an 8-9 team in the playoffs is absolutely despicable. More so despicable is the fact that they will have a home playoff game the first week of the playoffs. I'm definitely a proponent for seeding by best team. Like when you make the play, so I'm all for, if you win your division, you should get in. I'm all for that. But the seeding of the conferences should be done by overall record, meaning whoever gets in from the NFC South would be the 7 seed and not playing at home. That's just how I feel. With that being said, like, all the home games would be on the West Coast because the best teams are from the NFC West. It's Rams, Niners, 49ers, Rams, Seahawks, Niners are the best 3 teams in the NFC right now. It's just how it is. It's actually kind of crazy how that has happened, where they all are double-digit winners. I didn't see that coming. But yeah, anyway, I think from the NFC perspective, I think the 49ers are definitely, I'm going to be honest, they're my pick, right? The Lions were my pick, and I was definitely wrong in that. I'll admit to that. I think there's a lot to blame for that. I don't think it's necessarily a team thing. I think it's a scheduling issue where their schedule was pretty difficult, but I don't like blaming schedules for results. You play the schedule you're given. If you're really that good, you should win games. I think more the bigger issue is just the injury aspect. And I think a lot of teams have gotten better, whereas I didn't feel like Detroit got better from last year to this year from a player personnel standpoint. They also lost their 2 coordinators, and Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson. I think that had a lot to play into it. I think they'll be better next year, but the Lions, I think, would be the disappointment of the year for me. But with the teams that are in there, like the Bears are good. I'm still not sold on the Bears, but the Bears are good. I think they're one of those teams that could, choke away a top seed. They'll probably end up being the 2, meaning they'll end up playing the 7 seed, which I think in the NFC is going to be. Why can't I think off the top of my head right now? Let's pull this up. And I said I wasn't going to talk about this. I'll talk about this probably Monday again, but 7 seed will be Green Bay. Green Bay. So I think the Bears will end up playing Green Bay. I think this will be a matchup where Green Bay could win this game. 100%, I believe Green Bay could win the game. Though Green Bay, I think I'm be honest with you, it's going to be one of them NFC West teams. If I had to predict who I think goes to the Super Bowl, I think it would be one of the NFC West teams. I don't think the Eagles will make it. I don't think the Panthers or the Buccaneers, whoever gets in, will make it. And I don't think Green Bay makes it. So it's really down to Seattle, LA, San Fran, and the Bears. I think the Bears have the least likely chance to get into it. I think the Rams as well aren't going to get. To me, it's down to Seattle and San Fran. And I think what really, plays into that is who's that 1 seed. Moving over to the AFC conversation, again, there's a possibility that a 9-8 team is a 4 seed. If it's 9-8, it'll be Baltimore, because Baltimore would win that. What that would mean. If it's Pittsburgh, they'll be 10-7, which is a little bit more respectable. But again, they would also be the 7th seed in if we did by record. I think there's a lot to play for here. There is a possibility that Houston can win the division, which just the fact that they're a double-digit win team after starting 1-3, and I think they started 3-5 in their first 8 games. And to go from that to winning 8 straight, to end up at 11-5, possibly 12-5, as they play the Colts this week at home, possibly a 12-5. Jacksonville can be any seed but the 2, I believe. I think they can be a 1, a 3. Oh, excuse me, they can be any seed but a 4, because the 4 seed is saved for Pittsburgh and Baltimore. But Jacksonville could be a 1, a 2, a 3, a 5, a 6, or a 7, depending on outcomes. The best case scenario is Jacksonville wins, New England and Denver lose, and Jacksonville will end up being the 1 seed. Which is interesting. Denver's playing the Chargers. The Chargers are playing Trey Lance over Justin Herbert, and probably, I think they're resting other players. I'm going to just sort of assume Denver wins that game and locks up the 1 seed. Patriots will probably beat the Dolphins and lock up 2, and Jacksonville will more than likely be the 3. The other seeding, if the Chargers lose to Denver, they'll drop to the 7 seed. The Bills will then move up to the 6 seed, which is the highest the Bills could go. If the Bills win, they will be the 6. Unless the Texans lose, where they will then jump up to be the 5th seed. So there's still a lot to play for on the AFC side when it comes to seeding. Nothing set in stone. Really, really close record-wise. From the 1st seed, if you remove Pittsburgh and Baltimore's chances, the other 6 teams from the 1 seed, the 2 seed, the 3 seed, the 5 seed, the 6 seed, the 7 seed is 2-game separation. So it's a real close AFC. If we look at the AFC, I think Denver is a pretender. I'm just going to be completely honest with you. I think they really want the 1 seed because I think they could be potentially a one of the, there could be a situation though where the Chargers end up beating Denver. Denver becomes the 2 seed. That means Denver will end up playing the 7, which could realistically it would probably be Buffalo at that point, right? And so I'm looking at it. I'm going to be honest. The team that I'm scared the most of in the AFC, being a Patriots fan, I could be a homer and say, oh, it's definitely Patriots all the way. And part of me wants to say that. But realistically, I look at this Jacksonville team, and they're scary. Now, they're also very, inexperienced. If I really have to say what I'm thinking, this should be Buffalo's playoff. Like the AFC is the easiest it's ever been in this run for the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills should win and should go to the Super Bowl this year. They're the best team, in terms of experience. They've been in this situation a lot more. I can't remember the last time. I mean, the Patriots, it's been 5 years since the Patriots have been to the playoffs. I think it's been much longer than that for the Jaguars. Houston, I think they were in last year, but not super deep, right? And definitely not as good of a team. The Chargers, I'm not quite sure of because the Chiefs have run that division for a while. And Denver, again, I'm not quite sure the last time they made the playoffs off the top of my head. The point that I'm making is the most experienced playoff team over the last 5 years has been the Buffalo Bills that are going to be in the playoffs this year. And I don't think there's any excuse for why Buffalo can't win and go to the Super Bowl, right? But I don't think they make it. I do think they'll end up choking because that's what the Bills historically have done. And so I think this is either going to be New England. I think it could be Jacksonville. I think it even could be Houston. I don't think it'll be Denver. I'm 100% certain it won't be Pittsburgh or Baltimore. I don't think the Chargers, and I don't think Buffalo. I think Houston, I think Jacksonville, I think New England are your favorites in the AFC to make the Super Bowl at this case. And so as far as like predicting the playoffs, once we actually have an actual thing set on Monday, we'll predict them. The last real thing before we get into questions that I want to talk about is the college football playoff. We had a great last 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday, where Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia both got eliminated. The network big dogs are all out. I think that's fantastic. I just got to say, for all of the argument over the last 3-4 weeks since the playoff bracket was made, was JMU, Tulane are going to get blown out. And guys, they got blown out. I'll sit there and admit they got blown out. But we had a blowout yesterday, but where Alabama got absolutely rocked. Right? No one's going to speak up against Alabama, though, are they? Does Alabama still deserve to be in the playoff because they got absolutely destroyed by Indiana? Are we gonna mention that? I think JMU, more specifically, Tulane, in my opinion, had no business being there. I can see the argument for letting in Notre Dame over Tulane, even with the winning the but it all comes back to me though is just win the conference, right? As much as I feel bad for Notre Dame and think Notre Dame should be in the playoffs over Alabama, my argument for that was neither of them won a conference. Tulane got in because they won the conference. They followed the rules, right? So my argument is always Notre Dame fans should be upset at Alabama, not Tulane or JMU. And I thoroughly believe Notre Dame was the best team in college football this year. Alabama had no right to be in the playoffs, right? And then they come in, and sure, they win their first game against Oklahoma. But that Oklahoma team wasn't very good to begin with, right? It's one of those questionable things where this is the real question we really have to bring up is why are we letting teams who don't win this is why I always say conference champion should mean something. Oklahoma finished fourth in the conference, had no chance to make the championship game for the SEC, and they're going to get in because they were 10-2. I feel some type of way that a lot of these teams that got in, that are SEC teams, they got blown out of the water, right? And the argument is always, well, this is going to be the top. We want the top best teams. Well, the teams you guys think are the best teams, a team like Alabama gets absolutely bludgeoned. And this has always been my argument. Blowouts happen in football. They happen under the BCS model. They happen under the 4-team playoff. They're going to happen in the 12-team playoff. They'll happen in an expanded 16-team playoff. I think JMU deserves some apologies for everyone saying that they had no right to be there when JMU against Oregon put up more points than Texas Tech did. That JMU, granted, I'll say this, if JMU had a first half that replicated the second half, it would have been a much closer game. Stat-wise, JMU played a fantastic game. Again, they just had some mistakes where they couldn't finish, they couldn't put points on the board, they turned over the ball, right? And if they were more settled in the first half, I think JMU versus Oregon was a much more competitive game than we've seen in the playoffs. Maybe other than Georgia Ole Miss, which was a fantastic game last night. And so this whole argument against JMU broke down when you just let the games play out, because JMU played one of the better games of the playoffs in terms of statistics, in terms of scoring. Sure, their defense wasn't all that good when it really mattered, but again, it was pretty decent in the second half. If they played the first half the way they played the second half, I think JMU Oregon's a much closer game than the scorecard showed. And so I definitely think there has to be some apologies from the national pundits who did everything possible to discredit JMU. No one here, I myself don't even believe JMU would have won the national championship. I don't think they are the best team in college football. My argument has always been is they did what was needed to get in by winning the conference and having things go their way. We can't blame them for that. And that saying they're not qualified is absolutely insane, because they are one of the better group of 6 teams in the country, if not the best, who in the 4 years they've had an FBS program has already won a conference title, been to 2 bowl games, and if we want to be honest, been to 3 bowl games in 4 years. With the 4th year that they didn't make it, they were ineligible because it was their first year in the playoffs, right? Or first year in FBS. And so they were ineligible to make a bowl game, right? And so I think it's kind of disingenuous to say they don't deserve to be in when Alabama gets slacked by Indiana. No one's going to say they don't deserve to be in the playoff, right? And so, again, I'm not arguing that JMU is the best team, but I'm arguing for equal opportunity to make the playoff. Equal opportunity for the conferences to potentially make the championship game. Not arguing that we should handicap the SEC and the Big Ten and make the Sun Belt win a national championship. That's not what I'm arguing. I'm arguing that we play the games, each of the conference championships get in, and you play the games, and the games go as they go, and whoever wins, right? So I definitely think there will be expansion of the playoffs. They'll probably try 16 first. If I were them, you need to change the rules themselves. It's not about the amount of teams. I personally believe you could do a 16-team playoff with, and this is what I proposed at first when they announced that they were going to a playoff system, was a 16-team where the top 10 conference winners, the next 6 best teams based on AP rankings was what I originally proposed. I thought about it a little bit. I ended up at 32 because I think that best replicates March Madness, which works every single year. And so I think this is fun. I think we'll end up, I think Miami might win the national championship. I'm looking at it. I think adding Miami was the best decision they could do. I think Miami's going to win the national championship with the teams available. I think we'll end up with Oregon versus Miami. I do think Oregon beats Indiana. I think Indiana's beatable. I know a lot of people don't agree with that. I think Indiana's beatable. And I think Oregon will beat them. I think Oregon versus Miami will be your national championship. And I think Miami's going to potentially win. I think they could win the game. But my 2 teams that I think are going to be in the finals will be Miami versus Oregon going forward. Again, not much more to talk about, so we'll just go to the questions from the Discord. These are kind of longer questions. So B-Master first, he says, you have the power to bring back one of 3 factions. Which are you choosing? The 3 factions are Rated RKO, the Bullet Club, or the Shield. And without a doubt, I'm choosing the Shield. First off, the Bullet Club has like 30 and a half members from like 4 different promotions. That would just be difficult to navigate or nor care about. I think the Shield are the best of the groups here. Yeah, so we'll go with Shield. I would love for the Shield to return, and 100%. What is your opinion on people saying that the only reason why Michelle McCool is Hall of Fame is because her husband? Meanwhile, she said it's because she revolutionized the women's division. I gotta be honest, I don't really have an opinion on this. I think if I had to pick a side, I would lean more towards she probably doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. But I say this every single year with the WWE Hall of Fame. It's not a real place, and it's not a real entity. Like, it doesn't really, like, it's sort of like winning the championship, right? Sure, you have to put in the hard work, but everyone in wrestling who has ever been a wrestler puts in the hard work, whether they're on the indie scene or they're in WWE. They all grind. And so if that's right, and so your resume on why you should be a Hall of Famer is given to you. And so I don't think, in the same way, like, people will say, well, the Bella Twins don't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And like, what makes someone deserving in a sport or in a industry where everything is scripted, right? And Nikki Bella's championships, that we would say her resume could potentially get her in, well, that was given to her by booking. It wasn't something like she earned that, right? And so I am one that has never really cared that much about the WWE Hall of Fame and Wrestling Hall of Fame, and I think it means very little whether she got in, because I don't really know much about her career or what she revolutionized, to be honest, so I don't really have an opinion. I think she has an upper hand, being that Undertaker's on the committee that picks who gets in now. So I think that's part of the reason. I think we have to 100%, recognize that. But I don't really have an opinion on this, nor do I really care at the end of the day about why she's in. She's in. We could argue if she deserves it or not. The thing is in her era of women's wrestling, if you could wrestle, you revolutionized the game, because a lot of the women in the division were just there because they were hot. And so I don't know what she revolutionized, but I mean, cool. She was probably one of the better ones from her era, but that's not saying much. Remaster again. With the holiday season coming to a close, a lot of people made donations to charity. How much money do these so-called charities actually use, and how much do they keep? I did do some research on this. For those who don't know, you can actually research how much money from the previous year each charity uses and what they use the money for. The best that I could see is the average charity uses about 10 to 20% for marketing. And so the question from what I'm seeing is, based on you calling it so-called charities, I'm assuming you're coming from the framework, from the mindset that these charities are scams to make money for the people who run the charities. And I could see that. I think everyone does understand that not 100% of the money that is donated to you or to a charity goes to the cause. But we also have to understand that that there are budgets for these charities. So I want to use, let's just say I created a charity and I made $1 million in donations in year one. I'm not going to put $1 million into operating the charity and to the cause. Let's say my charity was cancer research, because that's one of the ones that gets critiqued all the time. It's cancer research. And so if I made $1 million my first year with a cancer research charity, I'm not going to put all $1 million into cancer research. Because in order for me to continue to take donations, I need to pay whatever staff that I have, because there is a staff that operates. I need to be able to operate and pay for signage and whatever. So there needs to be some sort of overhead to an operation cost for the charity, being that it's a non-for-profit. They can't make money, right? And so, they can't make profit. And so, but there has to be some sort of overhead. And so from my research, the average overhead or cost for operations averages around 10 to 20% of donations goes towards that. Which actually surprised me, because I would have come from the same perspective of, well, charities for the most part are just scams to profit the organization behind the charity. It comes out that a lot of charities use about 80 to 85% of their donations each year on their causes. When it comes to I think the frustration with like cancer research and St. Jude's and all of that is there's still cancer, right? And there hasn't been a cure for cancer. And in the last 50 years, we've donated, I think that the stat that I saw was in the last 60 years, like $2 billion have been donated for cancer research. And we don't have a cure yet. We're not any closer to understanding cancer. And people are still dying. So I can understand that frustration. I think the frustration is misplaced, though. When it comes to cancer, I think we should be frustrated more so, not at the scientists, not at the charities who raise donations, but I think it should be focused more so on big pharma in general, because you got to think about it. They are a business, and as bad as this sounds, if cancer has a cure and everyone who has cancer can just take the magical cure, then there's no need to sell chemo, which costs more, right? In long term, right? So it's sort of my issue with the pharmaceutical industry and the medical industry is it has become to a place to where it's not about care. It's about, or it's not about prevention, and it's not about curing disease, but it's about treating disease. And treating means we'll put you on a treatment plan for long-term care. And the goal of that is we want you to continually pay us, because if you get cured, we lose money. We lose a customer, right? And so I think that's where the frustration has to be, not necessarily with the charity. So it's a good question, because I would have come at it the same way you were, that, yeah, they probably use like 8. I would have figured the numbers were reversed, that 80% went to overhead to pay large salaries, and that 20% were used for whatever the charity was for. But it's the other way around. I think for the most part, most charities aren't laundering money or scamming people from the research that I did. And then the final question, nothing from Kara this week, which is fine, was sort of short-term notice for questions. Hopefully Kara has something for us for Monday. But Wavy D asked, with MJF as champion again in AEW, does AEW need to sacrifice a year or so and focus on its branding and marketing, and let MJF be the face of their company and plaster him everywhere? He says, in my opinion, he has the connection and star power to really make a dent in the mainstream world. So should AEW sacrifice some of the grappling and wrestling for a year and focus on the business side and tie their horses to the it factors of people like MJF and Harley Cameron? So I'm going to give you what I think. I'm going to give you two separate answers. I'm going to give you what WETOODEEP really thinks, and then I'm going to go back into reality. So in a perfect world, I 100% agree with what Wavy D just said. MJF is the most mainstream superstar in AEW. I think MJF's, first off, he has a face that you could plaster on billboards, and the average woman would look at it and be like, huh, he's kind of attractive, right? But I also think he also has a gimmick in the sort of heelish gimmick that he plays, where he could go on to cable television news and make a scene, and be in the mainstream world would eat it up, right? I 100% in a perfect world believe that Tony Khan, if Tony Khan was 100% interested in growing the business, that is how you do it. You put the title on MJF, which they have done, and I like that he mentioned Harley Cameron. I think she is a mainstream, marketable. She could be a Chelsea Green, but I think she could also be taken very seriously as a champion. But I also think she could run the sort of funny gimmick, but she's attractive, she's talented, she can have a mainstream appeal. Whereas I don't think you have a lot of that in the women's division, right? And so I in a perfect world where if Tony Khan was focused on growing the business, then 100% I agree. I don't know if I would say a full year. I don't think you should do it for all of 2026. But I think a good 6 to 8 months of just plastering MJF anywhere. I think it's about 8 months. They typically run All In August, right? So I think from now to All In, if you could just plaster MJF anywhere, All In's your biggest event of the year. And 100% believe that you could plaster MJF all the way through All In as champion, get some big match scheduled with MJF. I think I heard from, so Wavy D was on the Beyond the Junkyard podcast with James and Cody, and I didn't watch the whole thing, but James posted a short clip on the YouTube page where I think he said that he believes that Omega's going to beat MJF, and Omega's going to hold the title going into All In, which is he's going to put up his career versus Ospreay, because I think it's in London this year again, and it's going to be Omega and Ospreay is going to win the title, and Omega is going to retire. I disagree with the premise of. I think you could do the same thing without Omega, right? I don't know. I don't actually think Omega is going to retire. Part of me wonders, is his contract expiring? Because I've been saying this for 2 or 3 years. Omega is going to be the next big superstar to make the jump to WWE, and I could see that happening. And so I think MJF, if again, in a perfect world, if you're building something, I think you build MJF as his mainstream heel, get all this type of heat, have him hold the belt till all then have him drop it to Ospreay. I think that's dangerous though, to go from a super mainstream character to a super indie darling character holding your titles, but I think that in the perfect world, that's what I would probably do. But now let me give you the answer of what Tony Khan's actually going to do based on what I know about Tony Khan. And what I know about Tony Khan and what I know about AEW and what I know about the AEW fans and what I know about the sickos is Tony Khan is not at all concerned about growing the business and reaching the mainstream. Tony Khan is all about appeasing the marks, appeasing the sickos. And so I don't think Tony Khan's going to do a single thing to help grow the business over this run from a mainstream perspective. Tony Khan has the greatest opportunity to get some of the mainstream casual fans that are kind of tired with WWE. They have it's the perfect timing for them to plaster MJF everywhere, grow this mainstream audience, and to stop making your company look like it's second tier. I don't think Tony Khan cares about that, though. I don't think he cares about growing the audience and growing the viewership, and I think he's going to book to appease his fan base that he already has, and it's that's until he proves me differently, right? I just think that's how they're going to book the program. So yeah, 100% think MJF. I think he'll have a good run, but I don't think he's going to be plastered anywhere. They'll hardly promote the shows. I don't know. I don't think Tony Khan is all that concerned with getting the mainstream audience on his side. And I've said this, the first like we're at a sort of cross point right now in wrestling, where like 2, 3, 4 years ago, I would have said AEW's dying, and I've said that AEW would die at the current pace because WWE was so focused with the Bloodline story and was getting the mainstream casual fans sort of entertained in watching the product again. And then what ends up happening is not that AEW shifted. AEW to sort of stayed the course. WWE changed, and they changed how they booked, or something happened where the booking sucked. And we're at a place right now where I think the AEW fans haven't changed. Nothing's changed with them. They're the same number. But you have a section of wrestling fans and casuals who want to be entertained, but they're not getting that entertainment from WWE. And so they look at across the spectrum of wrestling, and if Tony Khan was smart, he would book for them. And he would try to bring those people in to grow his business at the detriment of WWE. Because I've always said, if you can get and hold and keep the mainstream casual fan, you win. And so we're at that precipice again where I can say that. Whoever gets them back, if WWE can get them back, or if AEW can get them in, whoever does it first, they're going to ultimately be top dog. And so I think WWE is going to course correct their booking this year. And and it's going to end up becoming at least watchable. But we'll see where I stand on that at the end of the year. But yeah, that's sort of where I stand on that. I think they should 100% agree with Wavy D's assessment of the current situation. But I think Tony Khan is not a serious person, and he doesn't care about growing his business. He just wants to keep what he has, and he has the money to do that, and so he'll continue to do what he has done, and it works for AEW and it works for their fans, and I'm sure they'll be happy, and we'll see where that goes. But I don't think there's any interest in AEW to market towards growing the company. So with that being said, thanks for listening to another episode of the Slapping Meat Community Show. Until next time, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Enjoy 2026. I'll see you guys with the next episode being recorded on Monday. Send in your questions. Join the Discord. Post comments on the YouTube if you're there. Like, share, subscribe. Let's make 2026 an even better year than we've had before. And until then, I will see you on the next episode.
So hit that subscribe, come along for the ride. Whether it's NXT or NFL time, going in the ropes and fourth and deep. Slapping Meat Community every Tuesday. Every Tuesday, every Tuesday.